during this past election, Donald Trump claimed that he would look out for the gay community. And so it's a little unsurprising, if you know his style, that he has kind of reneged on that issue. In fact, his administration is now saying that gay employees have no protection if their employers fire them simply for being gay. Case in point, a case involving a man by the name of Donald Zarda, who claims that he was fired from his employers simply for being gay. Now, a lawyer for Trump's Department of Justice argued that the Civil Rights Act of 1964 does not protect LGBTQ Americans from being fired because of their sexual orientation. And keep in mind, this is a complete reversal of the government's position on such matters under previous presidents. So here's another twist to the story that's pretty amazing. So while the Department of Justice is making this case, there's also the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, which is supporting Zarda in this case. They are arguing that Zarda does have civil rights and that his employers should not be allowed to fire him simply because of his sexual orientation. The Justice Department argument before the Second Circuit Court of Appeals came in the case of Donald Zarda, who claims that he was fired by his company Altitude Express for being gay. Now, employers under the Title VII or under Title VII are permitted to consider employees out of work sexual conduct. This is an argument by the Justice Department, by the way. There is a common sense, intuitive difference between sex and sexual orientation. That is the argument they're making.
That's Trump's Justice Department making that case.
Yes.
Yeah, the notion that a Trump Justice Department lawyer has come in and has correctly assessed that the last 53 years of interpretation of the Civil Rights Act is wrong. It's preposterous. Preposterous.
I hear you, but here's where I'm going to shock the world, and I'm more in the conservative position here. The 1964 Civil Rights Act is incredibly important. It's landmark legislation. It mentions that you can't discriminate based on sex, but it does not say sexual orientation. So now I think it's unconscionable to fire someone for being gay.
What do you think they meant?
That's exactly my point. I don't think they meant sexual orientation. I think that if they wanted, they could put that in there. They meant you can't fire someone for being a woman or theoretically for being a man. So now look, there is a great counter argument. It's a very creative one. And one that has been accepted. So let me give you the full context. Greg Nevins from Lambda Legal makes the case. He's like, look, you can say that sex is the same as sexual orientation because if you say a woman can have sex with a man and you can't fire her for that, you should also allow a man to have sex with a man and not fire her based on that, because that would be discriminating based on sex rather than sexual orientation.
Yeah, but
it's a creative legal argument, but they didn't say sexual orientation. I don't think they intended sexual orientation. But by the way, I'm in the minority on this issue because since 2002, the courts have been ruling that you cannot be fired for being gay because of the Civil Rights Act.
Right.
Yeah, I'm pretty certain they did not mean sexual orientation because that's not something they talked about in 1964. But obviously the concept of it would apply to sexual orientation, and certainly the spirit of it. And correctly, Republican and Democratic administrations have assessed that we're not going to go ahead and discriminate against people because of sexual orientation, because it's obviously the right thing to do. So just because technically, because they didn't mean it, you come in and decide that you're going to change the intent of 53 years of interpretation of that law.
It's, to be fair, it's not 53.
I got it, but a law 53 years old.
Since 2002, and some courts definitely disagree, but generally the courts.
But not the presidents, not the administrations, even the Bush Department of Justice ended up agreeing with it.
So I honestly don't know enough about what the Bush Justice Department did, but
well, it says a complete reversal of government's position on matters under previous presidents. I don't think they just meant the one previous president.
I understand all that, and there's good arguments to be made, but I think they should pass a law saying you're not allowed to discriminate based on sexual orientation.
What do you do? Well, but then
or gender identity, right? To go ahead and expand the explicit protections, introduce a bill, although they've been introduced but unsuccessfully, right?
So don't lose track of who the bad guys are, and I know you're not, but I mean, but like, yeah, okay, but they're not going to pass this law under this Congress, probably, right? Or
well, put them, then throw them out of office. Look, but I think
okay. So what do you do?
Consequences. So make the Republicans say yes, we do not want to protect gay people. We don't. We vote no. Make them vote no. Introduce the legislation.
Agreed. Okay, fine, but what do you do in the interim?
Well, in the interim, you got no, but there's not. Look, I believe that I am fairly conservative judicially, which is different than politically. And if they didn't say sexual orientation and they didn't mean sexual orientation, you've got to pass another law. As much as it's terrible.
All right, well, I mean, I don't have the full case history here, but there obviously, since many other laws have been passed that relate to sexual orientation, one could get the impression that the intent now is to include sex. I agree, we should pass a law. We should clear it up beyond any, but the notion that you're going to say, hey, it's not in there now, so you get to discriminate, that's a step backwards.
I mean, couldn't you also make the argument that the Supreme Court's ruling in regard to the Defense of Marriage Act is relevant to this case? Because the underlying issue with the Defense of Marriage Act ruling was the civil rights of the LGBT community. And so if you have the Supreme Court arguing in favor of the civil rights of the gay community, then isn't this a civil rights issue as well?
Yeah, and that's why I bring up the context and that it's perfectly acceptable to have this range of opinion that we have here legally. Of course, it's acceptable to have any opinion you like politically, but because you can make that case legally. But I think the other side would say, no, that applies to the government. The government cannot discriminate against gay Americans, whereas private citizens or private businesses in this case can discriminate legally because you never made it illegal to discriminate against gay people.
Right, but again, yes, you might be right on the law, but no one should be arguing for that. No right-thinking person should be making this argument, and all we should do is try and fix it. So whether if you were on the court, you might feel duty-bound to vote that way, you're not, right? So let's talk about it the right way, and let's fix it. On that, I agree. So go in, clear it up, fix it. But we may not, but getting that done, I suspect, would be difficult.
Yeah, look, if I was in charge of the government, would I go out of my way to make sure that gay people didn't have rights? Hell no. So I agree with you on that, Ben.
Yeah, and by the way, I just wanted to, again, quickly point out the fact that Trump lied, right? That he does not care about the gay community, doesn't care about their rights or protecting them. And so for certain gay individuals out there who like to run around calling Trump daddy, well, how do you like daddy now?
Yeah, because there's a choice here. You could believe that lawyer could come in and go, it doesn't apply to gay people and use Cenk's logic, which might be right, and say that, and then you go, yeah, I don't care, right? Yeah, not prioritizing that. If you prioritize it, I'll fire you.
Yeah, and by the way, that is really fair. So if, let's say, now I'm president, good luck, and somebody says, hey, should we use government resources to try to overturn the majority of the precedent since 2002 that gay people should not be discriminated upon by their private employers? Like, no,
of course not.
No, we're not going to spend government money doing that, okay? And what I will spend government money on is trying to get a law that says, yes, you are not allowed to discriminate against gay people because I want every American to have the same exact rights as other Americans. And that is worthwhile, and that is something you fight for. If you like the Young Turks, you'll love Young Turks membership. TYTnetwork.com/join.